Hello humans! If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I've always been a fan of the original Winx Club, specifically the one that was dubbed by 4Kids. Now, I wouldn't say that Winx Club is among one of my favorite shows, but it's still a great show that had wonderful characters, beautiful animation, creative world building, awesome villains, amazing fashion, deep messages and themes, incredible action scenes, and a phenomenal friendship between the 6 main characters. At least, it had all this in the original 3 seasons. Afterwards, the franchise kept plummeting downward in quality from poorly written stories, wonky animation, lame villains, and a much more childish tone. Not to mention that absolutely atrocious live-action reboot Fate the Winx Saga. With all of these failures, I definitely don't blame Eugenio Straffi for wanting to start fresh with the new reboot. However, there's still a noticeable decline in quality compared to the original in many ways that makes me think that this reboot is going to be another failure that'll tarnish the original's legacy. While it doesn't look horrendous, I'm not really liking what I'm seeing so far. Before we begin, please keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and if you disagree, that's fine, just don't be about it. Now without any further delay, let's dive right on in. First of all, the most notable change is the switch from traditional animation to computer animation. If you've been following my channel, you already know that I have a preference for traditional animation. But I will say that this at least looks leagues better than the past attempts to bring these characters into the CG environment, especially during the Nickbo era. However, I'm still not a big fan, even when ignoring the fact that traditional animation is a lot more timeless, and making these characters computer animated just shows that this is a soulless reboot rather than a true passion project. Winx Club ended up losing its visual identity. I agree that if they did 3D that the Winx Club would look creepy, since that's one of my problems with the movies, which is why it should have been 2D animated, but I feel like they could have done more to give this reboot a more distinct identity. One of the things that helped Winx Club stand out was its unique art style that made it instantly recognizable among its contemporaries. Yes, the characters have same face syndrome, but it was an art style that stuck with you for how memorable and unique it was. The girls in the reboot all look like CGI Disney princess knockoffs from a studio trying to capitalize on Disney's success. If they wanted to go for a Disney-esque style, they could have given the characters more individual faces, heights, and even body types like I did with my redesigns of the characters. Although, I will admit that I regret putting Bloom in red instead of blue, Musa in purple instead of red, Tekna in green instead of purple, and Aisha in turquoise blue instead of seafoam green. Maybe one day I'll fix that, but that's a project for another day. But in my version, I gave them all individual faces, heights, and body types to help them feel more like individuals. I felt like this was a missed opportunity for them to incorporate a more individual look for the girls because while they all look pretty, there's nothing about them that stands out as unique. By giving them more individual faces, heights, and body types, they would stand out not only from the original show, but from its contemporaries that all have their characters in the same mold, especially when you consider that by giving them the same face, the characters of color like Aisha, Flora, and Musa are robbed of showing their distinctive racial features. It just looked like they put Marinette from Miraculous Ladybug in a blender with the CGI Disney princesses. Also, why did they make Farragonda look so flippin' creepy? As for the quality of the animation, it's the best looking of the CGI Winx Club content, but that's not saying much. Yes, it looks good, especially by the standards of a TV show, and there looks like there's some effort put into it, but it still doesn't hold a candle to the 3 original seasons, which were a lot more appealing to look at. Plus, a lot of the movements look wonky, choppy, and stiff. Not to mention that sometimes things don't look fully rendered. The wings look too thick and plastic rather than transparent. Also, Flora's skin tone bothers me because it's never consistent from when we're being shown. Sometimes she's brown, though not as dark as she was in the original show, and other times she just looks white. Does the CGI team just hate Flora? They've always had a history of whitewashing her in CGI ever since Secret of the Lost Kingdom. It's disgusting, but at least they didn't whitewash Aisha, which I guess is something. The colors in the show look a little washed out and a bit drab compared to the original show. Why is Althea beige instead of its iconic pink with blue accents? The show was unapologetically feminine and this reboot sucked that away from Althea. As to the fashions, the only casual look I like is Tekna's, since it feels like something she would wear with a futuristic sci-fi look. However, I do find it weird that her hair is basically what Murda's looked like in the original show and they gave her purple purple highlights that blend in way too much with her pink hair. Bloom's look in the trailer would be good if the shirt was yellow and didn't have that netting that feels way too edgy and sporty for her. But her other looks make her look like a victim of Disney Channel protagonist styling. Flora's outfit looks like a rejected look from Hannah Montana. Musa has too much pink and pastels, looks plastic, doesn't show off her straight punk style, and her hair looks like it was attacked by the same stylist that did the hair and wings for Sirenix, but even worse. What happened to her original concept look? It was perfect. Aisha's outfit looks plastic and like they fused it to her skin. Not to mention, why have her in cutouts when her original concept look was so much better? I do love that Aisha's sporting braids though, and Stella's outfits look so cheap and unflattering on her, especially since they took away her warmer undertones and put her in pastels. Her outfits look like Halloween costumes instead of outfits belonging to a fashionista. She should be giving Chanel, not Temu. If you want a more thorough analysis on these looks, I highly recommend this video by Lisa Feverell. Even though the girls' original outfits were made in the 2000s, they honestly still hold up today, and they felt true to the girls' individual senses of style. I get that they wanted to be more conservative by not having their underage characters in crop tops, even though they still do that with some of them, but couldn't they have covered up the characters while also having them look good? The new looks are both cheap and dated. The original show had actual fashion designers coming up with these looks, which explains why they look so good. These look like they just picked up whatever outfits were on sale at Disney Channel during the 2010s. As for their fairy forms, they honestly look like better versions of their Mythics transformations, which if you've seen my video ranking the different transformations, you know that I'm not a fan of those looks. These aren't only too ornate for their base transformations, but they also look really tacky, like something Ariana Grande would wear, whose fashion I've never been a fan of. They come up more like toys instead of actual outfits that fairies would wear. Stella and Musa's wings look especially tacky and plastic. I especially hate Musa's hair. Why does she have some country bumpkin hick hairstyle? Also, why does Bloom have braids that are giving cultural appropriation? As for Aisha's hair, I'm gonna have my wife talk about this, considering this is an issue that is more personal for her as a black adjacent woman. Take it away, honey.
Hello, humans. I'll start off by saying that black women in TV shows and media have always struggled with their hair, or they have struggled to find someone on set to do their hair. They either spend hours on end doing it themselves, or they find their own stylist to do it. But that's only in real life. Now, black women in animation are either hits or misses. However, with advanced technology, animation for black women's hair should be amazing, right? Well, in the case of Aisha, it has not been so great. In her first appearance, it's beautiful and pretty wavy, but very loose textured hair. In the CGI movies, all the volume is lost. As for her hair in the reboot, first of all, I love the braids in her civilian form. However, her transformation hair looks too smooth, lacks black texture. The front of her hair doesn't look like it belongs on her scalp, and it doesn't look like the twists are fully formed, but rather just curled hair that you would find on any white woman. It does not help that the animators are getting lazy and using AI to animate the Winx. Also, Bloom's hair in her fairy form should not look like cultural appropriation. There is no excuse that Aisha's hair looks so unimpressive, especially since there are so many great examples of black women with beautiful textured hair and styles. Why are we not getting that? We could have that in 2D animation because there is a black woman named BrushByVegalia, hope I say your name right, who has made digital brushes specifically for black people hair, whose Instagram we will link down below. Like my husband, I have a preference for traditional animation. Overall, I'm very disappointed in how Aisha's hair looks, especially since black hair is so beautiful and amazingly diverse in styles and texture. Back to you, dear.
Thanks, darling. Anyway, I also take issue with the specialist looks, which look like G.I. Joe rejects. Why not actually give them looks that are more individualized and have their signature colors as the main color of the look? In my version, I even made Sky and Ribbon non-magical warriors, Helia and Brandon fairies, Timmy a sorcerer, and Naboo a merman that could transform into a human and had his own sorcerer form. The only looks I actually like are the tricks, though that's mostly because they stick so close to their original looks, but with a few updates. The only thing I don't like is how Stormy's initial is in gold when it should be a pale pink, and while I don't think the art style quite works for them, given that they have CGI Disney princess faces, they still look great, especially compared to the looks of the Winx Club. As to the transformation sequences themselves, they are way too busy and don't show off the girls' personalities like like they should. This is a problem with most of the transformations from the Nickbo era as well. They just have the girls flaring around like a bunch of rag dolls with special effects to hide how unimpressive the transformations are. We can't really appreciate the effects because they move so fast. There's a charm to simplicity. Not only are the outfits way too busy, but the transformations are too busy as well, and it makes it impossible to enjoy them. We get what each girl's powers is, but we don't get a sense of who they are. It feels like it all moves way too fast. The original transformation slowed it down just the right amount to get us invested. I'm not invested in these transformations because they feel more like more is more when it really isn't. Sometimes less is more. The only good thing I can say is that I'm glad they acknowledged Stella's lunar powers in her transformation, since she is the fairy of the sun and moon. I refuse to call her the fairy of the shining sun. Also, the song itself is fine, not bad, but nothing that will stick with you. If you want a more detailed analysis on these transformations, I recommend Unicorn Wars video and Lisa Febro's video on the subject. I'm also not very impressed with the voice acting. The only voice I like is Flora's because they give her an accent which helps her stand out. As for the others, they are so flippant, generic, and indistinguishable. Icy doesn't sound intimidating at all. Stella low-key sounds like a mouse, and Bloom is giving a textbook definition of a generic protagonist. If you've watched my videos where I did recasts of the Winx Club for a definitive dub, or my videos where I ranked the voices of the Winx Club, the Specialists, and the Tricks, I've said that voice acting is very important in animation because it helps you get invested in the characters. I don't see myself getting invested in these characters because the voices are all so bland that they make the DeviantArt/3B dub sound like the cast of the 4Kids dub. Let's also not forget that Rainbow has been proven to use AI for the reboot, and I'm pretty against AI because it takes away all the life from art and it's also terrible for the environment. It also explains a lot of why this reboot looks and feels so hollow. The characters look like they were put through an AI prompt that said Winx Club and a CGI Disney princess movie. I also feel like another reason for the pivot from 2D to 3D is because it's easier to use AI with something that's 3D. I'm sure it was also because of the ignorant belief that 2D is outdated and 3D is easier to make compared to 2D, but I feel like AI was also a factor in this decision. I mean, it's been proven that Aisha's hair in the transformation was designed from AI. The designs definitely look like AI and feel so standard and lifeless. It explains everything with how the animation is wonky and off. Always stick to real artists because they are the ones who bring something special to the project and add character. This may look pretty, but it's clearly a factory creation and why it'll never compare to the original. AI really needs to be stopped. However, if you were to ask me what I believe to be the center of this reboot's problem as well as the franchise in general, it is undeniably Eugenio Straffi himself. It's very clear that he's really out of touch with his audience and no longer understands what made the original Winx Club so special. Although I would argue that was clear based off his statements before Fate the Winx Saga came out, which was basically that animation is just for kids and that maturity was for live action. A statement that is as untrue as it is insulting. I think being called the Walt Disney of Italy really went to his ego, especially since he's proven that he's in no way Walt Disney. While Walt was no saint, he always wanted to innovate and push the boundaries of storytelling and animation. He refused to follow popular cycles like sequels, and had reboots and remakes been prominent during his day, you know he'd be against it. He always wanted to move on to new things and nearly went bankrupt multiple times to bring his creative vision to life. Plus, he never relied on a single property for success like Eugenio has with Winx Club. Yes, Rainbow has other projects, but none of them have really been very noteworthy, especially compared to Winx Club. Eugenio isn't a natural-born experimenter like Walt Disney because he keeps on going back to Winx Club instead of trying to create something that could be just as successful as Winx Club. It's clear from the later seasons of Winx Club, the soft reboot of Season 8, Fate the Winx Saga, and now this reboot, that Eugenio lacks any real drive, and is just sticking with what worked in the past, but is forgetting what made it so special in the first place. I feel like if a reboot of Winx Club is ever going to work, they need to get rid of the root of the problem, which is Eugenio Straffi. Not to mention that this reboot has been in development Tartarus since after Season 8 ended, which typically is not a good sign. So yeah, I have a strong feeling that the Winx Club reboot is gonna fail. All the warning signs are there. It's clear Rainbow is returning to Winx Club constantly because it's the only thing keeping them afloat, and I am willing to bet that if it fails, Rainbow will have to file for bankruptcy. Don't get me wrong, I don't want them to do that because of all the animators and workers that will be out of work, but that just seems to be its future. And let's face it, even on the slim chance that it's good, it'll still fail because it's being produced by Netflix, which is well known for canceling shows after 2 seasons, maybe 3 if you're lucky, due to Netflix's terrible commitment issues. I personally think it's not gonna be good, since it has a lot of the warning signs that the early seasons from the Nickbo era had. I don't know any of the plot details because I haven't been looking at any leaks like the others in the fandom have, but I doubt that I'll be impressed given the many times Rainbow has disappointed me in its attempt to revive Winx Club. Perhaps it's time to just put it to rest until someone can come along and revive it in a way that adds something special while staying true to the original. They are out there, just look at any Winx Club content creator who put in more effort than the actual franchise does. I'll still be checking out the reboot to see if I'm wrong, which I hope I am, but I seriously doubt it. And those are my thoughts on why the Winx Club reboot is gonna fail. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with what I said? What are your thoughts on the Winx Club reboot so far? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want my YouTube channel to take off so I can do this as a full-time job, which I would really appreciate. You can also follow me on my other social media accounts in the links below. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the Sea.